stick with my bro. Willing to dig it, yes or no? Here we go on with the show, the Hear Me Out Bro podcast.
Hey everybody, welcome to the Hear Me Out Bro podcast. We have a special episode today. Want everybody to go to their closets and dig out their PBS tote bags, because today we're going to be talking about Unsung Woodstock. Not to take anything away from the performances of people you know, but we just want to shed some light on some of the other ones that were overlooked that didn't make it into the movie or didn't make it onto the album. So we're going to be covering a lot of those kind of lost performances from that historical event. And we had mentioned it on our last episode that we'd be covering Unsung Woodstock. And as I was researching it and putting the playlist together, I realized that this weekend is the 55th anniversary of the Woodstock Festival. So it's 55 years ago today, on Saturday, that most of what we're going to be talking about today all went down. So I'd like to welcome my brother, Clark.
Hey, everybody. Let me buckle up my Birkenstocks.
And I'm Eric. And if you want to join us on the playlist, you can go to YouTube and search for at HMOBP, which stands for Hear Me Out Bro Podcast. If you search for that, you can find our episodic playlists. And if you subscribe, you'll get notifications for when those come out. You can listen to it beforehand, or as you're listening to our podcast today, when you hear the little radio dial noise, you could go and listen to the corresponding song if you want to hear it at the same time as our podcast. If you want to reach out to us with any questions or comments, you can reach us at Hear Me Out Bro Podcast, all lowercase, all one word, at gmail.com. Hear Me Out Bro Podcast at gmail.com.
If you like what you have heard on our previous episodes, we have a Patreon, Hear Me Out Bro Podcast, all one word. And we're going to have a couple tiers. $1 a month will get you a link to the playlist and let you know when new episodes are coming out. And for $5 a month, we will send out a link to the Discord server if you want to see us and hear us record the episodes live and hear all the songs in situ. Then you won't have to pause and bounce back and forth between the playlist and the podcast.
You can listen to us put all this down in real time, hear all the flubs and mistakes and rabbit holes that we cut out of the main episodes.
Mm-hmm. And if you think I say exactly a lot of times during the podcast, you'll get to hear even more of that.
Yeah, if that's your favorite part of the podcast, there's definitely some bonus content available. So, or me saying or clearing my throat. You'll get to hear all that in real time.
Or me forgetting how to end a sentence.
Yeah. Also, we forgot to mention last week, but we use the American Bandstand Rate a Record rating system. And that's what we use to rate all the songs. So it's on a scale of 35 to 98. 98 being because there's no such thing as a perfect song. And 35 because if you put a record out, you get some participation points. So that's how we do our ratings.
Nice.
Cool. So should we jump into Unsung Woodstock?
Sure. I got my bell bottoms on, so I think I'm ready to go.
Do you have any memories of Woodstock or just kind of your awareness of it?
Well, allegedly, I was the small child that was naked and covered in mud on the gatefolds of the album, but no one can either confirm nor deny that that was indeed me.
It could have been me. I wasn't in New York at the time that I know of.
Yeah, I'm
Actually,
pretty sure I wasn't born, so
I would have been about 2.5 years old when this all went down.
yeah.
And I was probably laying in bed, healing my ribs from getting kicked by a horse. so I couldn't make it to Woodstock, in other words.
Right. Yeah, you were in hospital.
Right. I was on bed rest.
I was -5, so
Yeah.
yeah, that kind of puts me out of the running for being the naked muddy kid.
Yeah, I remember seeing it for the first time, probably on public television. And I definitely remember Santana's performance, especially the drum solo. He was in his teens. Pretty amazing. And I definitely remember Jimi Hendrix. That made a big impression on me. And we're not going to be covering Jimmy's performance because that's been documented plenty.
Yeah. It's legendary.
But yeah, it's part of all that. It's like a high watermark.
Right.
And yeah. And being a guitar player, Jimmy's the man. But that's the last we'll speak of. Well, no, it won't be the last we'll speak of him today. But we're not going to be covering any Jimmy stuff.
Right.
That might be a different episode altogether.
Yeah. Yeah, he'll probably get his own. He deserves it.
Yeah.
I think the only other memory I have is, I think you had the record, like the 2-album record.
Yeah.
And whether it was on PBS or not, I remember seeing it and watching it with you because I remember it was like there was like some sort of follow-up thing. I can't remember. It was like at the end and like the crowds had all left. I remember somebody like being barefoot and like walking in front of the camera and trying on shoes that had just been abandoned there.
Yeah. Yeah.
I just remember, I was probably like, I don't know, a teenager, preteen or something, 14, and thinking that was like the most hippie thing possible. I'm just like, hey, somebody left these shoes. I'm going to try them on,
size?
see if they fit.
Yeah.
Mother Nature provides.
So we're recording this on Saturday, August 17th, 2024. And it took place on Saturday, August 16th. Well, it was the Friday the 15th, and then Saturday the 16th was all the bands that were kind of scheduled. And then Sunday was kind of like the headliners, I guess, at the time.
Nice.
And that was Sunday the 17th. So we're off calendar wise, but we're doing this on the Saturday. So we're considering this the 55th anniversary of that Saturday performance.
Nice.
So Friday was the first day of Woodstock, and that was the day they kind of reserved for all the folkies. So guy with guitar, girl with guitar, just come out and do your folk songs. And then Saturday was kind of the day for the bands, and then Sunday was more bands, headliners. So there was a band called the Incredible String Band that was supposed to play on Friday, but there was a pretty good rainstorm happening, and they declined to take the stage. And so they were kind of scrambling, well, what are we going to do? So this person was not scheduled to be playing at Woodstock, but they went up and just kind of filled that slot because of the band that declined, Incredible String Band. And so this is Melanie Sofka with Birthday of the Sun. So that's Melanie Sofka with Birthday of the Sun. She just went by Melanie, and compare that to like Joan Baez singing Joe Hill. I mean, that made both the record and the movie. And it's more of kind of a traditional protest song, about some copper miner going to the union or something. And
Right.
so, I mean, like, girl with guitar is not my favorite genre, but I think from going to being unscheduled to getting on stage in front of 500,000 people,
Right.
she got 2 encores, got called on
Nice.
back on stage for 2 encores. And I mean, she just sang the crap out of that.
Yeah. Yeah. I can see why. Like, it's not really my taste, like that kind of warbly thing that she was
Yeah.
doing for parts of it.
Yeah, mine neither.
Like,
But
uh, like it's kind of a folky trope, and I've heard a lot of bands from that era do that. But like, yeah, she was like belting out like those parts and other parts too. Like, she has a powerful voice.
yeah, it's kind of like a female Eddie Vedder or something.
Mm, she's better
Probably
than Eddie
not.
Vedder. I'm not that big fan of Pearl Jam, so
Oh, no, me neither. But just, the way she was pushing a little too hard sometimes, and the warbliness, that's kind of like a characteristic of what he puts into things too.
right.
Yeah.
But yeah, and then like I've come to appreciate like just someone singing with a guitar.
Yeah.
I used to think, well, without drums, like, is it really a song? If it doesn't have bass, can you dance to it? But having seen Pokey Lafarge, like he just it's just him and his guitar for most of his set. And
Yeah.
then even one of the times I saw Charlie Crockett, it was just him and his guitar up on stage.
Yeah. If you can move an audience with that, then you have it. You got it.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah. We have to forgive her of any, like screechy hippie girlness, because you have to wonder how much of that was nerves. You go somewhere and
Right,
you're not even planning to play, and then they put you out there on stage in front of one of the
right,
biggest audience to ever like be up till that point.
right. And she probably was a hippie girl, so
Yeah, and all things considered, I mean, she did pretty good, and it's a cool song too.
yeah.
It's moody and trippy and cool.
Yeah, it's kind of trippy in that weird, like, does anyone remember laughter kind of way? Like
Yeah,
the birthday of the sun. What does that even mean?
yeah,
Yeah, like I was trying to say, like the proof is in the pudding. Like she moved an audience of 500,000 people to the point of having 2 encores. Like that's
yeah.
badass.
Maybe the birthday of the sun is like a flat earther thing. Like if the sun goes around the earth, wouldn't it have a birthday?
No.
I got my physics wrong, I guess.
Yeah. Well, yeah, starting out with flat Earth, I think that's where you went wrong. Uh, yeah. So she dug around and like I think it was like 6 billion years ago.
Yeah. Well, regardless, happy birthday, son.
Yeah, it was 6 billion and 55 years ago today.
Yeah. So what do you give that one? Knowing that it's a pretty raw performance and not our favorite genre of music, what would you give it?
Oh wow, I was off by 50%. 4.6 billion years old. So
Wow.
4.6 and 55
Plus 55.
plus
In
55.
honor of the sun's birthday, I'm going to give Birthday of the Sun 55 points.
Oh, I'll give it higher than that.
Okay.
I'll give it. I mean, it's not really my genre of music, but like, yeah, based on like the power in her voice, yeah, I'll give it like a 62.
62. Okay, so what's
Yeah.
55 plus 6.5? 55 plus 6.5 would be 60,
61 and a half.
61 and a half. Yeah, I'll give it a 61 and a half. I put it here more for a historical context in comparison to what else is happening on that first day
Right.
that has gone down in history. Can't
Right.
forget Melanie also pulled this off.
Right. Yeah, it's like starting out with an unsung hero.
Yeah,
Nice. Oh, well, I mean, I guess that is the entire
the theme, right?
the theme.
Yeah, not even scheduled to perform. And yeah.
Yeah, stepped up, knocked it out of the park.
Oh, and if you want to do any rabbit holing, there's a cool performance of her, like, I think a week after that or a week before that, performing with Johnny Cash on TV.
Oh, wow. Yeah, I'll check
Yeah.
that out.
If you
That
want to
sounds
hear like a little more polished version of Melanie without the nerves.
Yeah.
For our second song, this was the first song of their set that kicked off on Saturday. And The Who made it to the album and the film with We're Not Gonna Take It from Tommy. But this is one of my favorite Who songs. And this is what they kicked their set off with. So we're going to check out The Who, Heaven and Hell. Oh, man, I love The Who.
Yeah.
Keith Moon, Pete Townsend, John Entwistle. Oh, man.
Yeah. They're always amazing. Yeah, and it's
Great band. Just fire. Just so much energy coming off the stage.
right. And it's like everybody's familiar with the Hendrix's performance. But it's like it's still amazing to hear something that heavy coming from Woodstock.
Yeah, as their opener to like kick off their set.
Right.
Yeah, that song was John Entwistle wrote that one, and it was a B-side for their live version of Summertime Blues. So
nice.
Came out as a B-side on a single. It came out later on like Odds and Sods and stuff like that, like collections. Right. But so that was like not even part of Tommy or part of their set or anything. They kicked it off with that one.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, I like that song. Maybe it'll show up on our like B-sides episode also.
Yeah, that'd be cool. Yeah, I can't say it's my favorite Who song, but
they have so many great songs. I like that one. When I hear it, it's like, I like that song. And Roger Daltrey, man, he was just like such a golden sun god, like back then.
Oh yeah. Well, I think he was like his whole life, man. Like,
yeah. I think Sammy kind of like took a couple cues from Roger.
Oh, for sure.
Yeah. So
yeah, it's like he had the look, he had the voice, he had the attitude.
Yeah. So should we score this one, or should we jump into?
Well, yeah, let's score this one, and then
okay.
Because I don't want what happens next to affect my rating.
Okay.
Just as I'm not going to factor in the fact that this is the second best song with that title. Like,
yeah.
I have to mentally disregard the Dio era Sabbath, Heaven and Hell.
Yeah, I'd put them at about equal because I love the punk energy of the Who.
Right.
And I mean, just Pete Townsend just plays with such reckless abandon. And Keith Moon is just like next level, just wild man on the drums.
Yeah. Yeah. It's like, it's pretty common for somebody to have that King Kong sound when they're a drummer. And it's just like,
yeah,
like that brute force. But it's really rare to have that brute force with a guitar player.
Yeah. Yeah, and he was just all over the stage, with his jumps and his windmills and
Yeah.
just swinging his guitar around. And yeah, we'll hear more about him swinging his guitar around in a minute. But I would give
No spoilers.
Yeah, I would give Heaven and Hell by The Who live at Woodstock. I'd give it like an 88.
Wow.
Because, this is like peak hippie era, This is like 3 days of love and music or whatever. And this is about as punk as you could get back then.
100%.
So I give it an 88 just for being so groundbreaking and just putting energy into music that wasn't really there before.
Right. Yeah, because I guess we've been putting all the songs that we've covered so far on the podcast like in a context, like an era or how we were introduced to it.
Right.
And so, yeah, it's like you definitely have to put this in the context of like what was happening in the greater world at the time and like compare and contrast.
Right.
Yeah, just for the energy and the the proto-punkness of it. Yeah, I'll give it a 78.
Okay, cool.
I liked it, but it's not my favorite Who song. Like,
yeah. Well, they played for decades and decades, and
right.
There's all the mod stuff, there's all the rock opera stuff, there's all the later stuff. It's just the Who's they're one of the top rock bands of all time.
Hopefully I will be forgiven.
Well,
hopefully I am forgiven for not having that as my favorite Who song.
Yeah, that's fine. It's one of their lesser known songs, but that's what I thought made it cool that they would kick off with that.
Right.
So, also later on in the set, after they finished playing Pinball Wizard, they had like a little incident that's come to be known as the Abby Hoffman incident.
Okay, before we play this, so Pinball Wizard was out at that time.
Well, as Tommy, yeah, they performed Tommy almost in its entirety.
Oh, so they could have started with that, like.
Right. Well, which makes it more interesting that they did kick off with Heaven and Hell at the front of it.
Yeah, that's awesome.
Yeah. So right after Pinball Wizard, we have what's become known as the Abby Hoffman incident. And I guess we'll just play it so you can hear it. It's short, and then I'll give a little background on it.
Okay. Yeah, for the listeners who might not know who Abby Hoffman is.
So that's the Abby Hoffman incident. And Abby Hoffman was, kind of like a East Coast protester guy. He was the founder of the Yippies, which is like the youth hippie countercultural movement or whatever. And so he thought like the middle of the Who's set would be a great time for him to get up there and, spout off what he thought was important that day.
Mm-hmm.
And Pete was having none of it. There's all sorts of accounts that they had to carry him off stage, or that Pete hit him with his guitar, or just kicked him in the fanny and pushed him off the stage. Or there's curiously no film footage of this incident. So there's just various stories, and it's rife for urban legends. Because we know Pete was none too pleased about having some yippie get up there and spout off in the middle of a Who set. And also, like, I think when Pete Townsend's up there playing guitar, he's a bit like a bull in a china shop. And that's probably like not the best time to wear red, you know?
Right.
So he talks about, he's complaining about John Sinclair being in jail. So John Sinclair was like this poet guy, and he was also kind of a countercultural icon kind of guy from Detroit, but he was the manager of the MC5. And he gave 2 joints to a female undercover police officer and got arrested for distributing narcotics. And so he was sentenced to 10 years in prison, and he ultimately served 29 months after a lot of people came to his aid, including like John Lennon and other people. So
Other
he didn't
hippie
serve the
drug
full
users.
10 years, but that's who John Sinclair was about. So, and what Abby Hoffman thought the whole Woodstock thing was a farce because people weren't there marching in front of the jail to get John Sinclair out at the time.
Right. And, you know, as someone who lives within crawling distance of 2 dispensaries in California, I can dig it.
I can dig it. Pete dug it too. It's just, you know, it's like, don't get up on the stage and yell stuff into the mic. Like, I was in a totally inconsequential band that played concerts for handfuls of people.
I don't think I call you guys inconsequential.
Well, but that was one of the more annoying things you could have happen is somebody jump on the stage, step on your pedals, kick your guitar cord out, get on the mic and start spouting stuff. And people
make it about them.
Yeah, people get a lot worse consequences than Abby Hoffman got from Pete Townsend that day.
Yeah.
There's been people that have had a Fender P-bass cracked over their skull for lesser offenses.
True.
So we got to give Pete Townsend a round of applause for showing restraint. And we also, if anybody out there thinks they have a cause, and if anybody out there thinks they have a cause that's so important, get your own stage.
Yeah, start a band, write a song.
Yeah, start your own band.
Yeah, put out a spoken word album.
So we're not going to rate this incident. We'll leave that up to our listeners.
Well, we can't rate it because there isn't any video footage, so we can't.
That's right.
We can't give it a definitive as to what Pete did and where, because I guess
it's undecided.
Yeah, I guess Abraham Zapruder was busy that day. Maybe he was stuck at LaGuardia Airport.
Well, and even then, could we trust footage from a 3-letter agency?
Well, because technically wasn't the entire farm basically a grassy knoll?
It was actually a grassy bowl.
Oh.
So it was a bowl-shaped piece of land on Yasgur's dairy farm.
Right.
They wanted to play a whole bunch of different places. They had a bunch of places that they kept trying to put it on, and all the town councils were like, hell no.
Right.
And then finally, Yasgur's farm, it was a dairy farm, and it had a bowl-shaped field with a pond at the bottom. So they put the stage in front of the pond. And if you watch the movie, that's the pond where everyone is skinny dipping. But I used to work for the USDA, and you don't want to swim in a dairy farm's pond.
No.
For all you aspiring hippies out there, there's better places to swim.
Yeah.
So, okay. So moving on. So now we're going to jump over to Sunday night. We'll come back to Saturday, but Sunday night, one of the headliners, I first heard this. There's a music podcast from ages ago called the Guess Behemoth podcast. And I wasn't aware of this. And he played this entire set on his podcast. And it blew my mind. I mean, out of all the twin brother albino blues guitar players to ever hail out of Texas.
There's so many of them.
This guy is my favorite of them. So our next song is Johnny Winter performing Mean Town Blues.
Nice.
A little bit long-winded, but you need time to put on a boogie slide masterclass.
Right?
Yeah.
Yeah, we don't usually review video on the podcast, but could you talk about his guitar? Was
Yeah,
that
I
a
was going to
12
mention
string?
that.
Yeah.
He's playing, it's called a Fender 12. It's normally a
Okay.
12-string guitar, but he only has 6 strings on it. It's one of the
Oh.
weirder looking guitars that Fender ever made.
Right.
And it's interesting that he would play that guitar. I'm not sure why he did, but yeah, that's guitar is immortalized as part of that performance there.
Okay. Yeah, because I was going to say, it's like, wait, that's a 12 string. It doesn't sound like a 12 string.
Yeah, it's a Fender 12 with the high strings removed.
Interesting.
Yeah, a little weird, but different. And that's not the only weird gear coincidence that we're going to talk about on this show.
Okay. I don't even think that's going to be the longest song. It's the longest song so far.
So far, it might be the longest song. I think it is.
It looks like there's one coming up that's longer.
Man, I love Johnny Winter.
Yeah.
I just do. Johnny Winter who was listed as playing Woodstock. His brother Edgar joined him on a couple songs.
Okay.
Playing saxophone. They did Tobacco Road and another number.
Nice.
But his main band for this performance was Uncle John Turner on drums and Tommy Shannon on bass. And yes, it is that Tommy Shannon that played bass for Double Trouble for Stevie Ray Vaughan.
Nice.
Part of that Texas guitar slinger mythology.
Right.
So because I love Johnny Winter so much, I got to do 2 Johnny Winter songs. And he's not going to be the only 2-songer on here because the next artist, I couldn't just do 1 song.
Right. And you can kind of hear where our loyalties lie. I mean, this is the unsung heroes of Woodstock. This is not the typical sound that people think of when they think of Woodstock.
No, and this is
much more to the heavier end of Woodstock.
Do we want to rate this boogie woogie slide guitar 12-string to 6-string conversion boogie masterpiece?
Yeah. I'm going to have to go higher than I thought I would have. Because it's like, I love both of these brothers. They totally kick butt. And like, he's got a great voice, great blues player. And there was a moment where he went into the solo where I think I looked at the time and it was like, oh, okay, there's like 6 more minutes in this song. Like, all right, let's strap in. And it's like, I've mentioned before that I'm not a musician. So sometimes when they break into like a solo or like a long portion of the song, it can kind of pull me out of it. But it's like he was doing so much stuff that it was like after about a minute of that, it like when halfway through the song, I was like, holy moly, he's like all over the place. He's doing that. Oh, he's doing this. Like he was doing that vocal thing, like kind of scatting along.
Yeah. When you do the George Benson thing, that's like some people can play all kinds of stuff on guitar, but like to play it and sing it like that, it's like your brain has a knowledge of what note your finger's going to make.
Right.
And to do that George Benson kind of thing where you're singing along with what you're playing, it shows it's like really just emoting out of you and really like it's coming from the heart.
Yeah. And it's like, I've really only heard like Robert Plant do that
With somebody else playing guitar.
Right. Like he was just kind of harmonizing with the guitar.
Yeah, that's more like the call and response thing that he and Jimmy would do.
Right.
Yeah.
But yeah, this is one guy making all of that racket. Yeah, that's impressive. Yeah, so I was thoroughly entertained. So I'm
Cool.
going to give this, I'll give it an 85.
Cool. All right.
Yeah. Yeah, that was badass.
Yeah, I'm gonna. Oh man, I love Boogie. I love Johnny Winter. I'm probably gonna do like an 89.
Okay.
I mean, it's not my favorite Johnny Winter song, but I mean it's got so much fire and energy. And I like that song. I like the little turnaround, the down, 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 down. It's really melodic, and then it jumps right back into that boogie. So yeah, I'll give it an 89.
Cool.
So that was the Boogie Woogie Masterclass. Now we're going to hear a low down blues masterclass, also from Johnny Winter. And this is just some dirty, low down Leland, Mississippi blues. Leland, Mississippi blues.
Yeah, that was amazing. What a timeless sound. That was a really good recording too. Like
yeah.
The sound and the recording quality, like that could have been recorded yesterday instead of 55 years ago. Like that's such a classic, like heavy blues sound too.
Yeah. And the Winter Brothers, they stayed so true to the blues, like a lot of people did blues stuff, but then they did, went on to do other things.
Mm-hmm.
Like that was their thing. And they were doing it before the whole British blues revival thing. Like,
yeah,
I don't know if you dig around on the interwebs, there's a picture out there of Johnny and Edgar as teenagers, with their slick back hair and wearing suits with B.B. King. So, I mean, they're like true blues, these guys.
Yeah, like I looked them up. This is the total tangent because the other song, the previous song, was actually like video footage of him playing. And I thought, man, when did Michael Moorcock write the first Elric novel or short story? Like, I wonder if it was inspired because it's like,
I wonder.
He looks like what I think Elric looks like when I close my eyes. Like every Elric cover looks like Johnny Winter. Yeah, the first one was 1961, The Dreaming City, and I think it was like 64, 67.
Yeah, no matter how you slice it, Johnny Winter is a magical creature.
Oh yeah, he's the eternal champion. Like he left us in 2014 to go rock on some other plane of his existence.
Yeah, 10 years ago. Well, I'm sure we're going to do just a straight Johnny Winter episode. And I'm sure we're going to do a Winter Brothers family tree episode.
Nice.
So if you dig this kind of stuff as much as I do, like, stay tuned. There's going to be more of it. So, what do you give Leland, Mississippi Blues?
Let's see. Yeah, I kind of like the boogie woogie aspect of the other song. A little better. Yeah, I don't know though. I might have to go 80 on this one too. So I mean, just the fact that it was like that heavy blues, like already, in 1969, like this is contemporary with the first couple Zeppelin albums and Cactus and like yeah, but his sound is like even more polished. Like yeah, like I said, this could have been recorded yesterday. Like you could play this song sounding exactly like that live on stage tomorrow, and and it would sound contemporary and just as awesome.
Yeah.
So yeah, I'll go 81.
Okay. I think I'm going to give it a 90 because I like Boogie, but I prefer the low down stuff.
Mm-hmm.
And I also like he was just playing straight and not doing the slide.
Yeah,
Like he's really just showing how well rounded he is.
right.
Yeah, and it wasn't as long and drawn out as the other one. I mean, I don't mind because of what he was doing, but it's a little more concise and just a little more digestible, I think, for me.
Right.
So I'll give it a 90.
Yeah. Yeah. I went one higher because, like, the Boogie Woogie is definitely more of a throwback sound,
Yeah.
whereas, like, that heavy Mississippi blues is still a thing. Like,
Yeah, the boogie is what you want to see all the hippie girls dancing to. But the lowdown stuff is like the kind of stuff I would want to play. Just get down and dirty,
nice.
All right. Well, thank you, Johnny, for that performance.
Yeah. Thank you. Wherever you are. All right. Speaking of the lowdown, what's our next?
Or the
next
up
song?
high.
The up high. Oh,
Yeah.
are we starting high and going south?
No, you don't. Well, it's kind of a mixed thing because you have to climb to get to this band.
You're right.
Yeah, we'll discuss the sounds you're about to hear after we hear it. So this is Mountain Southbound Train. It's pretty rad watching Leslie West play.
Oh yeah.
Like when he's doing those long extended like feedback ring outs, he's like pointing up in the air and stuff.
Right.
It's like it's so rad.
Nice. Hey Eric,
Yeah.
what tickles?
I don't know.
It's the fuzz.
So fuzz.
Yeah, that was a masterclass in that fuzz tone, man.
Okay, here's the thing. We're gonna do a little gear nerd stuff here too. I'm a total gear nerd. I could have a podcast just talking about that, but
yeah, I won't be your co-host on that one. My eyes just glaze over. My ears will glaze over.
Yeah, I won't spend time on that one.
No, let's hear it for this though, because that was a unique tone.
Yeah. So what happened was, okay, for starters, this was the third concert that Mountain ever played.
Dang.
And that's what they sounded like. And what happened was they signed up with the same management as Jimi Hendrix. They had the same manager. And so their first concert was at the Fillmore West in San Francisco. And they made an agreement to like, I think this is how it all went down. I might be wrong, but this is how I'm recalling it. They made an agreement to be with Jimi Hendrix's management. And that's what got him on the bill at Woodstock also, because Woodstock wanted Jimi Hendrix to close out the show. And so the guy said, well, I have this other band too, could they play as being their third concert?
That's crazy.
So they flew from Fillmore West and flew back to New York where they were from. And Jimi Hendrix was kind of being sponsored by Sun Amplifiers at the time. And Sun Amplifiers has an interesting history. It was started by the bass player from the Kingsmen, whose big hit was Louie Louie.
Yeah.
So he was their bass player, and he started a amplifier company called Sun with two N's. So his name was Norm Sundell, and he was the bass player for the Kingsmen. Okay. And so I think they were endorsing Jimi Hendrix, and they sent him a bunch of amplifiers. So the management sent a bunch of gear to Mountain They're like, oh, cool, we're going to get a bunch of nice Marshalls and stuff, because that's what Jimi Hendrix was known for playing through.
Mm-hmm.
And they open the box, and there's 4 Sun Coliseum 300 PA heads in there and 4 Sun 412 cabinets. And they're like, oh, what are we going to do with this? We're like, thought we were going to get guitar amps and bass amps and stuff.
Right.
And, but then they plugged into them, and the Sun Coliseum, it's called a 300. I don't think it's actually 300 watts, but it does have 4 6550 power tubes. I think they were rated at 120 watts. Could have been more. But yeah, it's just super loud. And the interesting thing about it was, because it was a PA head, it had 4 channels for microphones that each had their own volume, and then it had a master volume, which was not a thing that amplifiers had at the time. Right. So they could plug in and turn the microphone preamp all the way up and get that fuzzed out sound. And then they had like well over 100 watts. And they had each had 2 of these amps. The bass player, Felix Popularity, plugged into 2 of them also. So you could hear that fuzzy bass.
Right.
Yeah. And then that became Leslie West's signature sound, was, getting shipped this wrong amplifier. And like the rest is history. And I mean, this may have been like the first kind of like heavy tones that were coming out that weren't using like a fuzz pedal.
Right.
Just coming straight out of the amp and just super loud.
Right.
And also Leslie West played a Les Paul Jr., which was kind of like a beginner guitar. It had a single P90 pickup in it and was like not a fancy guitar. But between that Les Paul Jr. and the Sun amplifier, I mean, nobody sounds like that. It's just such a fierce, biting tone.
Yeah, it's like heavy but warm. Got that fuzz. Yeah.
Drummer.
Often imitated, never overcome.
Yeah, another gear nerdery thing. Corky Lang. Okay, this is going to go a little deep tangent here, but I'll be quick. Corky Lang could not keep up with those guys sound-wise, so he used timbales instead of tom-toms on his drum set. And then shortly before that, Ludwig came out with a drum set called the Karaoke drum set, which had timbales for toms. And most of those were wrapped in a Black Panther wrap, which was kind of like, the cultural thing of the 60s also, which was almost like a Tolex amplifier finish. And I believe that the drum set that Mitch Mitchell played at Woodstock was also wrapped in the Black Panther finish. And I just happened to own a 1968 Ludwig Karaoke set in Black Panther myself.
I was going to say.
Yeah.
When I came up there to visit, I seem to recall seeing just such an item.
Anyways, so that's like blues rock right there. Just that heavy guitar. I think these guys really kind of paved the way.
Yeah, was there really like super heavy like Southern rock before these guys?
I'm sure there was, but like not with that sound.
Right.
I'm sure everybody was like pushing it like that, but like the tone and just the simplicity that Leslie West plays with, he's not super flashy.
Mm-hmm.
He's just all about like just ringing out that note. Just like nobody sounds like him. Mississippi Queen, how heavy was that?
That's like one of the heaviest songs ever. And it's yeah.
And Sun amplifiers, like if you look at like all the doom bands, there's even a band called Sun, and it has like, it's Sun O, but like the O is like the little sun symbol that was on their amplifiers.
Mm-hmm.
I have a badge around here somewhere. I could show it to you if I had it handy. But
Yeah, I've seen them live.
yeah, Sun is kind of like the de facto doom metal amp, besides Orange and like Sleep and bands that use the Orange stuff.
Right.
And there's people that use Laney's because that's what Tony Iommi used. Like all the Northwest doomer bands, it's all Sun stuff.
Right.
Yeah, even I think like Buzz Osborne of the Melvins famously played like a Beta Lead Sun amplifier, and so that Red Fang and all those kind of bands,
right,
like go for that sound too. And it's just so heavy, especially when they tune their guitars down. And,
right.
Yeah. But it all kind of started with Leslie West
Cool.
getting this mistaken shipment of PA amplifiers.
Nice. Let's rate Southbound Train. I think this might be a first for the podcast. I'm gonna play the beginning one more time. Yeah.
That bass tone, I mean, that would not be amiss in like an Earthless set or something,
Yeah. Yeah, I had to go back because I knew I got a little distracted by all the gear talk.
Yeah.
And yeah, this is the first song maybe during the AOR.
Don't overrate it because
No. But okay. Hear me out. But this is the first song on this playlist. And I don't think I made this face during the ska playlist. But this is the first time, definitely in at least 2 episodes, where I've made the stink face.
Oh, nice.
Because it's just, that sound. It's like, it's so heavy and fuzzy, but it's still like warm and bright too. Like how can you do all of those things at the same time?
It's like the perfect tone.
Yeah.
But it's also Leslie West's fingers. Somebody else could get on that same guitar and amplifier and it would sound horrible.
Right.
But he can just ring it out.
Yeah. I'm gonna have to go 80 just for the tone alone.
Okay. Yeah. Yeah, and we have one more coming up. So like I don't want to rate this one too high because I know what's coming.
See, I don't. That's why I wanted to rate this before I heard the other one.
Yeah. Okay. I'll give this one like a 84.
Okay.
Because it's a pretty simple tune and stuff, but just man, that sound.
Yeah. There's nothing else like it.
Well, there is other stuff like it.
Yeah, but nothing just like it.
So if you thought that was heavy, okay. Now remember, this is like Peace and Love. This is Saturday night.
I'm listening.
The sun's just going down. You're standing around in the mud with like your hippie girlfriend.
Yep.
And
even if you're not smoking weed, you probably have a contact high at this point.
Yeah, who knows what's going on.
Kind of a little faded just because you've been standing in the sun all day.
Maybe you got some of that brown acid before they warned everybody not to take it.
You're probably a little dehydrated.
Yeah. Yeah. A little sunburnt, dehydrated.
Yep.
Had to go to the bathroom out behind some bushes because there wasn't enough facilities. You're kind of hungry and you're tired because like you didn't sleep very well laying out in the rain the night before.
Right.
So this is Mountain Dreams of Milk and Honey.
Dang.
Oh, man.
Yeah, if we ever do a songs written by Bruce Dickinson about dirigibles episode, that won't be the longest song anymore.
Oh, man.
But until then, that might be the longest song. But
Yeah.
I actually didn't mind it because like he starts off with the like cigarettes tasting funny,
Yeah.
and it
As
kind
I
of has like
sink
that.
into my bed.
Yeah, it kind of has that stonery proto stoner thing
Yeah,
going on,
for sure.
and and so it's like a getting high simulator because like everything gets kind of distracted and fuzzed out and like kind
Yeah,
of
you
all over
lose
the
track of
place.
time a little bit.
Yeah, and then you're like, where was I? Oh yeah, sitting in a blue room,
Oh man.
trying to get into anything at all.
Yeah, I know that Popularity wrote some songs for Cream, and then Jack Bruce wrote theme for an imaginary western, which these guys also did in their set at Woodstock.
Oh
So
wow.
I'm wondering if Popularity wrote White Room, that Cream
Yeah,
song.
they have a similar kind of vibe and like
Yeah, just shows you how heavy Mountain was, though.
oh man, yeah.
I gotta forgive him for that extended jam. I mean, maybe Felix or Corky had to take a bathroom break, and like we've all heard how long the lines were for the bathrooms at Woodstock,
True.
and maybe there was somebody on the side of the stage like telling Leslie like
Yeah.
run out the clock. No, keep going,
Yeah.
keep going. Yeah, I mean, yeah, it was way too long. The thing I can't forgive them for though is that like he started picking up that little guitar riff and stuff. The band totally missed an opportunity to like not only let his solo run way over, they could have jumped in double time there, on that little riff.
Right.
They could have
Right.
like double timed the drums. And like, I mean, Earthless does that all the time. They'll start out with this slow, heavy riff and then it just spins out into the universe.
Right.
And they could have done that. This is only their third gig. Maybe in future gigs they did that, or
Right.
didn't let Leslie kind of like run out the clock. I mean, if I was on stage and I heard that, I would like jumped right in, like with double timing that riff, because he could have soloed
Right.
over that too, and it would have just been much more impactful.
Well, this is probably like early in the era of jam bands too. So maybe
Yeah.
I don't know whether it has more to do with that or more to do with it only being their third time playing live.
Yeah. And this
Like-
just, I look at it as like a gear demo. It's like a Les Paul Jr. with the cord plugged straight into a Sun Coliseum 300, 2 half stacks. It's like, that's the sound. So like he just, he quiets it down, he rolls it up. So I just look at it as like a gear demo more than a guitar solo. And the crowd didn't seem to mind.
No. And like it was long, but if they hadn't had that reprisal at the end, like they get back on track and like thunder out the rest of the song.
Yeah.
Yeah, if they just kind of like petered out or like something, but this like they brought it back and it's like, oh dang, right.
Yeah, it's the sound of a band that could have used a few more rehearsals under their belt. But
True.
killer.
Fair.
Like
Yeah.
the DNA was there.
Right.
So what do you think of Dreams of Milk and Honey?
I liked it.
I like it too. It's just so heavy.
Yeah. Yeah, and like you said, it kind of has White Room vibes. Yeah, it's got all the DNA for that, like the heavy bluesy stuff that came on later.
Yeah.
And completely different, like contrasting with the cleaner Johnny Winter heavy blues.
Yeah.
Like a little more polished heavy blues.
I think I'm going to give this one like an 88. Like, I mean, it's got some clams in it. Runs a little long on runs really long on the solo. But
Right.
like if I was there at Woodstock, like this is what I would have remembered. It's
Mhm.
like, holy crap. This is would have been emblazoned in my memory of like
Right.
what happened at that concert.
I would have been like, I can't wait to buy their album. Wait, they don't have an album yet?
I think it came out in 1970.
Yeah. So imagine the first time, like a year later, hearing Mississippi Queen on the radio and going,
Yeah.
it's those guys.
I remember. Yeah. They're still playing. Cool.
Yeah.
So what do you think for a score?
I'll go 83.
Okay, cool.
Yeah, it's crazy that their first concert was at the Fillmore. We discussed Slim's last episode. Like the Fillmore is another legendary venue.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's about an hour from where you and I grew up.
Yeah.
I've seen some just incredible concerts at the Fillmore.
Yeah, Fillmore West, and then there's the Fillmore East too, and
Where's the Fillmore East?
I think it's in New York.
Okay.
Yeah, they just took the San Francisco hippie thing and imported it to New York.
Okay.
So yeah, two of like the best live albums ever were recorded there. The Allman Brothers live at the Fillmore East, and then Jimi Hendrix Band of Gypsies was live on New Year's Eve at the Fillmore East. And oh man, talk about guitar tones. That album's at the top for sure.
Right.
So do you want to move into honorable mentions?
Sure.
Okay, we do have one song to play for the honorable mentions on the Saturday concert, because all the weather, the rain, traffic jams, a lot of the scheduled performers weren't even there at the site yet. So there was times when bands were supposed to go on stage, but they didn't. And yeah, they had all kinds of technical issues. So John Sebastian from the 11 Spoonful was there just in the audience to check out Woodstock and, you know, dig the whole scene or whatever. A band that couldn't make it, so one of the promoters asked John Sebastian, "Hey, could you like get up and play for a little while?" And so this is kind of like the Melanie thing repeating, you know, someone who wasn't scheduled to play at Woodstock, but, you know, because of difficulties or people declining or backing out or not even being there yet,
Right.
John Sebastian got up and did a little acoustic set on Saturday. He played this song, and this is a 11 Spoonful song, and I just love this song. I mean, yeah, I mean, it's cool he played at Woodstock and stuff, but just this song is just a standout song. Out of all the songs that got played at Woodstock, this song is just a good song. So I wanted to include it on the list, even though it's an honorable mention. So this is John Sebastian with Darling, Be Home Soon. Cute hippie chick alert.
Right. I don't even think you have to put the hippie chick qualifier on her.
So yeah, it's John Sebastian. I like that song. It kind of almost makes me cry when I hear it, you know?
Yeah, at first I was gonna, I don't know. It grew on me.
Yeah,
It bloomed on me.
got it.
Because at first I was like, oh yeah, he's rocking the tie dye, and yeah, this is kind of more what I expected from Woodstock. And yeah, and I could have done without the close up of his feet, his sandaled feet.
Uh-huh.
But yeah, that's a beautiful song. Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah, we might have to do a Loving Spoonful thing.
Okay.
Yeah, you talk about the way he was dressed and stuff. I just imagine being like a father in the 60s and your daughter brings John Sebastian home for dinner one night. And you're just like, I don't know, Just reminds me like if you were like Archie Bunker or something, and your
Right.
daughter shows up with this guy.
Yeah, your daughter's that foxy brunette.
Yeah.
She brings home that dude.
Yeah. Okay. Just a little 5-second thing. John Sebastian was one of the first people to play a Sunburst 59 Les Paul.
Mm.
And a lot of people saw him play one and were like, man, that is a cool looking guitar and it sounds really good. So he might have been ground zero. Well, besides like Eric Clapton and the Beano album, John Sebastian may have been ground zero for the whole Sunburst Les Paul phenomenon. He was definitely an early adopter. Okay, enough gear talk. Yeah, we won't rate that because it's an honorable mention, but I like that song. That's cool that he played it as his last song at Woodstock.
Yeah, and also cool that he was a walk-on. Like,
yeah,
kind
of like the Melanie thing. Here's a guitar. Can you
can you
keep
fill
the
some
crowd
time
entertained till the band shows up? Yeah. So some other honorable mentions. Creedence also played at Woodstock.
Okay.
And if you like Creedence, they were there. They were doing it. They played late into the night and it was raining. It was well after midnight. And everybody was like asleep on the ground, basically.
Oh, wow.
And John Fogerty says, we almost didn't want to play because like all these people are trying to sleep. But there was one guy in the back, like flicking his Bic lighter and like saying, I'm here for you guys. So John Fogerty says they played their whole set for that one guy.
Nice.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's rad. Because that's also what Bruce Dickinson has mentioned too, about playing huge venues, that it's like he's not playing for the people in front. Like they're going to be there no matter what.
Yeah.
He's projecting out and playing for the people at the back. Like the people you can barely see.
Yeah. So some other honorable mentions. It's kind of more that hippie thing, but this song's kind of iconic and it's not something you hear all the time. Like it was a hit at the time, but it's not something you hear all the time today. During the folky set, Tim Hardin played, and he played his hit song, If I Were a Carpenter.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah, if you don't know that song, it's worth checking out. It was kind of a thing at the time and just reminds me of growing up, kind of that whole like back to the earth aspect of the hippie thing and just being humble and not materialistic and stuff. And then also, I almost put a Grateful Dead song on here, but the Grateful Dead just kind of fizzled out for Woodstock.
Really?
Their head tech guy, Owsley Stanley, who's also the guy that cooked all their acid for them and stuff. And who knows how altered they were going to Woodstock or whatever else. But Owsley Stanley was not going to let them go on stage because it wasn't properly grounded. So he got his tools out and just like took up most of their set, getting the stage safe and playable, and like the thing with John Sebastian, band's not even getting to be there on time, the stage not being properly grounded. And this is what happens when you put hippies in charge.
Right.
I hate to say it, but yeah. So the Grateful Dead only played for like, I don't know. Well, they played for a while, but they only played like maybe 3 or 4 songs and then just kind of like stopped. So yeah, like
a lot of hippies aspire to be carpenters, but none of them really built stuff to code.
Yeah, and I mean, if you know the Grateful Dead, those guys are road warriors. So there had to be like some serious issues for them to like not get up there and really like give a killer set.
Right.
because, yeah, I mean, that's what they're known for.
Mm-hmm.
So, yeah, there was issues. Who knows what happened with that? But they were there. I think that's it for honorable mentions.
Okay.
I just want to do one more section called Coulda, Woulda, Shoulda. I want to talk about the bands that could have played at Woodstock, the bands that would have played at Woodstock, and the bands that should have played at Woodstock.
Right.
So
Let's hear it.
first off, could have. Free, they declined to play. They didn't think it was going to be that big a deal, or they didn't want to fly all the way to America for a festival concert. But a week later, they played at the Isle of Wight. If you haven't seen Free playing Isle of Wight, you'll see what you would have missed if they did play Woodstock.
Right.
So that's a could have. Okay, Tommy James and the Shondells, another band that I really love and really dig a lot. Tommy James and the Shondells. So Tommy James was in Hawaii, and his secretary, who's like kind of his manager of his personal stuff, calls him up and says, okay, this is quote, yeah, listen, there's this pig farmer in upstate New York that wants you to play in his field, end quote.
So what? Why didn't they want to show up?
I don't know.
That sounds like a hot gig.
Yeah, he says he regrets it, but that's how it was put to him.
Right.
So that's another could have. Tommy James and the Shondells could have played at Woodstock. Another one is Jethro Tull. So Ian Anderson declined. He knew that Woodstock was going to end up being a big deal, but he didn't. He declined the invite because, quote, he didn't like hippies, inappropriate nudity, heavy drinking, and drug use. So Jethro Tull is on the coulda list also. So another band that would have played Woodstock was Iron Butterfly. They were scheduled to perform on Sunday, but they got stuck at LaGuardia Airport, and they sent telegrams back and forth to the promoters about trying to get a lift on a helicopter or this and that. But they spent the whole weekend, or they spent Sunday stuck at the LaGuardia Airport. So,
dang.
So they would have played. Okay, now we're going to get into like another Bill Graham story. So Chicago was invited to play. And also, It's a Beautiful Day could have played or would have played. Like they were invited also. Both had agreements to perform at Woodstock. But Bill Graham, he had a contract with Chicago to book them for a concert. So he booked them to play at the Fillmore West on Sunday, on the August 17th, so that they wouldn't be able to play Woodstock, so that he could open up a slot for Santana, who was the manager for. So basically, he like made Chicago like live up to their contract by booking them on the day they would have played Woodstock. So they were obligated to play contractually to play Woodstock on that Sunday, which is kind of a move, you know?
Yeah, a little bit.
Yeah, and also It's a Beautiful Day was another San Francisco band. They're famous for their song White Bird. I don't know if you know that one. White bird in a golden cage. It's like a very, very hippie song. It's very groovy.
Totally.
But so they were slated to play, invited to play. But Bill Graham decided to do a coin toss to see if they or Santana were going to play the gig. And Santana won the coin toss. And who knows if Bill Graham knew how to do like cheetah coin toss or not. But anyways, so those are two more would-haves.
Right.
Okay, now on for should-haves. And this also falls into the move category.
Okay.
But Jeff Beck Group,
Oh, wow.
they were invited to play, but he broke up the band deliberately before Woodstock because he, quote, "I didn't want it to be preserved," end quote. So who knows what was going on there, but Jeff Beck could be that way, especially with the Jeff Beck Group. But so they should have played there, but anyways. So also should have the Birds. They were invited, but they were kind of burned out on music festivals, so they declined. That would have been cool. Led Zeppelin also. I think Jeff Beck Group and Led Zeppelin had the same manager with Peter Grant.
Mm-hmm.
Peter Grant declined for Led Zeppelin. He said, "No, I don't want them to play at a festival." And the excuse he gave was because at Woodstock they'd have just been another band on the bill, which is not true. I mean, come on, Led Zeppelin. They would have risen to the occasion.
Yeah.
And yeah. But so anyways, that's another should have played Woodstock.
Oh man.
So that wraps up our Unsung Woodstock episode. There's a lot to unpack in there.
Yeah, a lot of stuff I'd never heard before.
Yeah, you think we all know kind of like what went on at Woodstock, but yeah, there's just a lot to unpack there. You know, that kind of ended up on the cutting room floor of history.
Yeah, and probably like growing up, probably due to the influence of the Bill Graham types and the flower power bubble of San Francisco. Like I associate Woodstock way more with that kind of stuff. And so I remember when you got me into Cactus.
Uh-huh.
And I was just blown away that there were bands that heavy, like that far back.
In that time period.
And so Mountain and like the Who. And
I think the way that they framed it was that the Flower Child thing was like still happening. But I think this was kind of the beginning of the end, you know? Like it definitely died at Altamont, you know, with the Rolling Stones, Satanic Majesty stuff, and, you know, with the stabbing incident. It definitely died at Altamont. But I think if we had a true view of history, we would have seen that like the Flower Child thing was kind of like on its way out. That's just my opinion.
Right. Was it just too muddy for the Hells Angels to show up?
Well, it was in New York. I don't think they had New York chapters yet.
Probably not.
But I mean, myself, you know, I'm a peace and prosperity kind of person, you know, anti-war. I have a little bit of hippie impulses in me still.
Yeah, I like some of the ideals, but I've just been witness to so many people not holding those ideals, but not putting them into practice.
Yeah.
Like so many of the San Francisco hippies moved to Marin County and moved up here.
They became
to
the
Sonoma
yuppies
County
in the 80s.
Yeah, and even before that, you know, they were always the NIMBYs.
Right.
So
yeah, we've definitely suffered at the hand of hippies that like bought houses when they were cheap and decided to like give up their capitalist pig ideals. Because if you look at like real estate prices in San Francisco or the North Bay area, it's like
you can't blame it all.
Love and freedom, bro.
Yeah, you can't blame it all on like Silicon Valley and the tech bros.
Right.
Like before that, it was unaffordable because the hippies closed the gate behind them.
Exactly. Yeah. And I don't know, I've heard kind of that's what a lot of communist and socialist revolutions are, is just the people that already got theirs closing the door behind them. May or may not be true, but we're not a history podcast.
Yeah.
We're also not a true crime podcast, but Leslie West, speaking about Felix Popularity, said that Felix Popularity, because he was the producer for the band and they needed a bass player, so he stepped in as bass player. So that mighty fuzz tone bass was the guy who was producer, who stepped in. But Leslie West said that Felix Popularity taught him a lot about what to do. And he also taught him a lot about what not to do. So if you're into like rock and roll true crime stuff, just Google Felix Popularity and his untimely demise.
Yikes.
Rest in peace. Anyways,
Wow.
So our next episode, we kind of want to try and have a loose framework of doing like a genre at the beginning of the month, then alternating the next 2 weeks, and then having like a locality-based episode for our last podcast of the month. So I think for next episode, we'll do bands from Ireland.
Yep. I'm very excited about this episode.
Yeah, this will be a good one.
Yeah, I love a ton of bands from that country, from that island. And I'm not Irish at all, but somehow, like I think I was born in the wrong century and born in the wrong era and area, because I love Irish food. I love Irish music. Like, hands down, a woman with an Irish accent is like one of the sexiest accents ever. And
yeah, true.
I've always wanted to go there. It's the next place on my international travel checklist, because I haven't been there yet. And I'm seriously half-assedly considering moving there, because I love all of those things. And everybody who's been there that I've talked to is like, yeah, all those things are great. Like, Ireland's really cool, except for the weather. It's always cold and windy and rainy. And it's like, what's the issue?
Yeah.
Like, I'm fat and I have a beard. That's my kind of weather.
Well, if you do go there or move there, my daughter would definitely come to visit you, because I think half of her clothing is wool.
Oh, yeah.
And her two favorite things around here are growing potatoes, and she really wants to raise sheep.
Yeah.
I think, whatever's in our DNA, like, she got some of that. So
Right.
she would definitely join you over there.
Yep. She's always welcome.
So I hope you guys all enjoyed Unsung Woodstock. Hope you learned a few things and maybe got turned on some new music to check out, or some old music to recheck out.
There you go.
All right. So we'll see you in another week. And hope everybody has a good one. Bye.
See ya.
Checking out music with my bro. Willing to dig it, yes or no?